I never wanted to buy it. But somehow, I couldn't leave without it. I was at a small, dimly lit antique store in a forgotten alley of New Orleans. The shelves were crowded with trinkets, dusty books, and oddities that could have easily belonged to a haunted estate sale. But then I saw it. A painting, framed in gold, hanging on the far wall. The portrait depicted a woman, her features soft and serene, but there was something about her eyes. They didn't look like the eyes of someone captured in a moment. They were waiting, watching. It wasn't anything special, certainly not worth the price they were asking. But as I stood there, staring at it, I felt something tugging at me. I didn't know if it was the eerie atmosphere or something more. But the more I thought about it, the more I had to have it. I made the purchase, though the shopkeeper gave me a strange look. He didn't speak much, just handed me the painting with shaking hands and whispered, "Be careful with her." I shrugged it off. It was just an old painting. Or so I thought. That night, I hung it in my living room. The woman's gaze seemed to follow me wherever I went, but I thought it was just my imagination. As the days passed, I began to feel her presence more. When I woke up, I could have sworn her eyes shifted, just a little. Not much, but enough to make my skin crawl. Then one evening, as I sat watching TV, something caught my eye in the corner. It was her. She was smiling now. Not just any smile. A smile that twisted her delicate features into something sinister. I froze, unable to look away. No, no, no. I whispered to myself, trying to look away, but her eyes stayed locked on me. I turned the TV off, convinced it was the flickering light playing tricks on me. But when I looked back, it was worse. The smile had grown wider. I couldn't sleep that night. And when I woke the next morning, I noticed something that made my heart stop. There was a handprint, right in the center of the glass. I didn't touch it. I hadn't even gone near it. Panicking, I wiped it off. But as I did, I heard a voice, faint and cold, drifting through the air. "You shouldn't have taken me." That's when I realized something even more terrifying. Every night, the portrait's eyes would follow me. Every day, the woman would change, her smile stretching further, her face becoming less human. And then, one evening, I saw something I hadn't expected. The woman was no longer in the portrait. Her hand, cold, skeletal, pressed against the frame, as though she was pushing her way out. I ran, but I couldn't escape. Her eyes followed me, wherever I went. To this day, I don't know if the painting is still in my apartment. I moved out weeks ago, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone, something, was still watching me, waiting. If you ever see that portrait, run. Because once it finds you, it won't let go. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room had thickened, and with every second that passed, the weight of the painting's presence grew stronger. I thought about burning it, smashing it, anything to make it stop. But a small part of me hesitated. I couldn't explain it, but something about the woman in the portrait seemed lost, as if she was begging for help. That night, I laid awake, staring at the ceiling, the image of her smile etched into my mind. I kept hearing that voice, faint but chilling, in my thoughts. "You shouldn't have taken me." By the next morning, I had to confront it. I stood in front of the painting, trembling, and asked the air, "What do you want?" The woman's eyes shifted. Not just a simple movement. Her gaze shifted toward me, slowly, deliberately. I backed away, my hands clammy, but the image on the canvas didn't stop. Her lips curled upward, that same twisted smile spreading wider. And then, a whisper echoed from within the room. "You belong here now." I spun around, trying to find where the voice came from, but no one was there. The painting was silent again. The smile hadn't moved, but the air felt colder. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't concentrate at work. I couldn't sleep. The painting, she, was always there, watching. Even when I wasn't home, it felt like the room was full, like someone else was there with me. I did everything I could to ignore her. I tried covering the painting with a sheet, even turned it around to face the wall. But the next morning, when I checked, the sheet was gone. The painting was back. This time, more insistent, more alive than before. That's when I decided to get rid of it. I took it to the nearest antique shop, hoping they'd take it off my hands. The same shopkeeper, who had warned me before, looked at me with pity in his eyes. "You can't get rid of her," he said softly, as though he already knew what had happened. "She chooses who she stays with. And now, she's chosen you." I felt a shiver crawl down my spine. I didn't want to believe him, but I didn't know what else to do. As I left the shop, the woman's voice, now unmistakable, whispered in my ear. You can't leave. You are mine. The following days were suffocating. The house felt like a prison. I started seeing things out of the corner of my eye, flashes of movement, shadows that didn't belong. Each time I tried to look directly at them, they'd vanish. And every time I passed the living room, the painting's eyes followed me. But not just in the normal way. This time, she seemed to be searching. Her gaze was more intense, as if she was waiting for me to do something. But what? What did she want from me? I couldn't take it anymore. I had to find out. That's when I realized the most terrifying truth. The painting didn't just choose who it wanted to follow. It made you feel like you belonged to it. She was inside my mind, inside my thoughts. One evening, I stood before the portrait once again. Her smile was wider now, almost inhuman, and her eyes gleamed with something malevolent, something deep. I whispered, "What do you want?" The air shifted. "I want you to stay with me, forever." Suddenly, the house seemed to distort, as if reality itself was bending. The floorboards creaked beneath me, and the walls started to pulse, like the entire house was alive and breathing. I ran through the hallways, through every door, every window, but no matter where I went, the house kept pulling me back. At last, I found myself standing in front of the painting once again. But this time, the woman wasn't just in the canvas, she was inside the room. Her form was barely tangible, like smoke, but it was there, moving toward me. I stumbled back, but my feet couldn't move. It was like something was holding me down, forcing me to look at her. Her voice, no longer just a whisper, roared in my ears. "You are mine. You will stay with me forever, just like everyone else before you." Before I could even scream, the walls closed in around me. The air grew thick with cold, and everything began to spin. And then, I understood. The house, the painting, the woman, she wasn't just trapping me. She was pulling me into the very fabric of the portrait itself. I had become a part of it. I awoke with a start, my heart pounding. For a moment, I thought I had escaped. But then I felt the coldness, that suffocating weight pressing down on me once again. I wasn't in my bed. I wasn't anywhere familiar. I was inside the painting. The world around me was warped, like the canvas had come to life. The colors bled into one another, stretching and contorting, as though the very fabric of reality was tearing apart. I could hear her, the woman, her voice echoing through the shifting, distorted landscape. "You're here now, forever." I tried to move, but the ground beneath me was shifting too. The floor felt like it was made of liquid, a dark, viscous substance that seemed to suck at my feet. My legs were heavy. Every step I took felt like I was sinking deeper into the darkness. I looked around, panic surging in my chest. The walls, if you could call them that, were bending, curving unnaturally. The colors in the air shifted from sickly greens to deep reds, as if the room itself was a living, breathing organism. It was all wrong, and I was trapped. I turned around, hoping for an escape, but the portrait was there, just as it had been in my living room. It loomed over me, its frame now extending into the twisted reality I had found myself in. The woman's eyes, her hollow eyes, glared at me, unwavering, unblinking. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Instead, I felt something cold, something ancient, press against my chest, like invisible hands wrapping around my ribs. Then, a voice, low and rasping, whispered from the shadows, "You belong to her now. She owns you." I turned to see a figure emerge from the darkness. It was another person, or at least it looked like a person, but its features were indistinct, blurred, as though it was made of the same shifting paint that surrounded me. The figure reached out to touch me, and I recoiled, but it didn't stop. It reached again, its hand passing through my chest, and for a split second, I felt a jolt of pain, a sharp, icy coldness that spread through me like fire. "She's taking you," the figure rasped, its voice distorted, echoing through the air. "She takes everyone, just like she took us." And then I saw it. Other figures, similar to the one in front of me, materialized from the shadows. Their faces were blurred, just like the first, but there was something familiar about them, something haunting. They were all trapped in this grotesque reality, forever bound to the painting, just like me. I recognized their expressions: horror, disbelief, and then acceptance. One of them stepped forward, his form becoming clearer, his voice growing more distinct. "I was the first," he said, his eyes hollow. I thought I could escape too. But once you're in here, you can never leave. I took a step back, my heart hammering in my chest. Who are you? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You don't remember me? The figure's lips curled into a sad smile. I'm the one who tried to warn you. I was just like you. I thought I could control it. He pointed toward the portrait. But now, you're a part of her collection, just like the rest of us. I felt my stomach twist in terror. The painting wasn't just a painting. It was a doorway, a portal, a gateway to something far worse than I had ever imagined. The woman in the portrait wasn't just alive. She was feeding on us. Each person, each soul trapped within that twisted world, was a part of her, a part of the darkness that had consumed them. My legs buckled beneath me, and I collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by the suffocating realization. There was no escape. But then, I felt it. The cold, familiar voice again, seeping into my thoughts, whispering in my mind, "You're mine. You're always mine." And just like that, I understood. The woman wasn't just pulling me into her world. She was becoming me, and I was becoming her. Our souls, our very essences, were merging. I was no longer just a person. I was a part of her collection, trapped in this grotesque, painted prison forever. But I wasn't alone. I could feel the presence of the others, the countless souls who had been taken before me, now a part of the same eternal nightmare. As the walls of the painting closed in around me, the others, the lost ones, whispered in unison, "You'll never leave. None of us ever do." The walls tightened, and the room began to darken even more. The last thing I saw before I was fully engulfed by the darkness was her smile. That same twisted, eternal smile. And then, there was nothing. I couldn't breathe. The air in the painting world, if that's even what it was thick, almost tangible, like it was pressing down on me. My limbs felt heavy, as if the very air itself was too dense to move through. Panic clawed at my chest, my heart racing in a desperate rhythm, but there was no escape. I was trapped in the swirling vortex of her world, and there was no sign of any way out. I wanted to scream, to tear at the fabric of this nightmare and force my way back to reality, but no sound came out. My mouth was dry, my thoughts disjointed, swirling around with the crushing realization that everything I had known was gone. The world I once called home felt as far away as a dream, slipping further and further from my grasp. "You cannot escape." The voice came again, smooth and soothing, yet chilling to the core. It was her, the woman from the portrait. Her presence was like a cold, invasive shadow that wrapped around my very soul, suffocating me, drowning me in her control. I looked around. The figures were still there. The others, their features just as blurry, indistinct as before. They were silent now, their eyes vacant, lost to the same fate that awaited me. They seemed resigned, as though they had long since accepted that they were part of her collection. And then, I saw him again. The man who had spoken to me earlier, the first one to warn me. He was standing just beyond the edges of the portrait, his face twisted in a grotesque mask of despair. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a hint of recognition. He knew the truth. You're still fighting, aren't you?" he whispered. His voice cracked, as though it had been years since he had spoken aloud. I did too. I tried to resist, but it was futile. She is too powerful. The painting, it becomes you. I shook my head, desperate. No, I can't. I can't let this happen. There has to be a way out. But he only looked at me, pity filling his eyes. There isn't. Not anymore. I could feel it then, the pull of the painting, the creeping sensation that she was inside my mind. It was as though the borders of the canvas had dissolved, and I had become a part of her world, her reality. "Let go." The voice whispered again, more seductive this time. "Let go, and I will take care of everything. You will never be alone." It sounded so comforting, so inviting, but I knew better. I had seen the others, had felt their presence. They weren't free. They were prisoners, just like me, forever lost in this twisted existence. And now, I was becoming one of them. The darkness crept closer, the walls pressing in on me, suffocating, pulling me deeper into the painting. It was no longer just a part of the room, it was me. The lines between what was real and what was imagined were blurring. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see the woman, her cold eyes staring back at me. And in those eyes, I saw the faces of the others, faces I had seen in the shadows, their souls entwined with hers. You belong to me now. Her voice echoed in my mind, an eerie lullaby. Forever, just like the others. I tried to fight it. I had to fight it, but I could feel myself slipping. My body was no longer mine. My thoughts weren't my own. I could feel her presence inside me, creeping into my very soul, taking over. But then, something shifted. A flicker. A moment of clarity. I remembered the real world. I remembered who I was, who I had been before all of this. The life I had left behind. The people I loved. The warmth of the sunlight on my skin. The sound of my heartbeat. No, I whispered, struggling to cling to the faintest thread of my reality. I'm not like them. I won't give in. And just like that, I fought back. I pushed against her, against the darkness, against the suffocating grip of the painting that had taken me. My body shuddered as I tried to break free, to hold on to the last slivers of my sanity. The woman's voice screamed in my mind, furious, angry that I was resisting. But I couldn't stop now. I had to fight. You can't outrun me, she hissed, her presence growing stronger. You are mine, and you will never escape. But I wasn't giving up. I kept fighting, my every muscle screaming as I forced myself to move, to push against the boundaries of the world she had trapped me in. And then, just as it felt like I was about to lose it all, the painting began to crack. A small, insignificant fracture appeared in the corner of the canvas. But it was enough. The woman screamed in rage, but it was too late. The paint began to peel away, the world around me distorting even further as the cracks spread like spider webs. The figures of the others shrieked in unison, but I didn't stop. I pushed harder. You can't do this, she howled. But I could. With one final, desperate surge of willpower, I tore through the painting, the canvas splitting open like a wound, spilling the darkness out. The coldness that had gripped me started to fade. The suffocating weight of her presence lifted. And then, freedom. I fell to the ground, gasping for air, my chest heaving as I pulled myself back into the real world. The room around me was normal again. The painting was on the wall, harmless, silent. The woman was gone. For a moment, I just sat there, trembling, overwhelmed by what had just happened. But the relief was fleeting. Because I knew now. I knew what she had done to me. She had tried to make me one of her victims, to claim my soul, to trap me forever in her twisted world. But I had escaped. Or had I? As I looked around, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The eyes in the painting were still watching me. And I knew, deep down, that the woman's presence was never really gone. She was always there, lurking, waiting for the next moment to claim what was hers.